You hear about this one number all the time. I mean, it's everywhere, dominating the headlines, steering government policy. It's become the ultimate report card for how an entire country is doing. And for decades, it's been pretty much the most powerful number in the world.
So it really gets you thinking, right? How do we measure if a country is doing well? How do we even know if we're actually making progress or just, spinning our wheels? Well, for like the last 70 plus years, the world's had one go to answer for that: gross domestic product. You know it as GDP. It's the number that tells us if the economy is booming or busting. And this is the big question we're digging into today. What if that one single all powerful number is giving us a completely warped view of reality? What if it's actually pointing us in the wrong direction?
All right, so let's get into it. To really get why GDP is so problematic, you gotta go back to where it came from. Turns out it was never even meant for the job we're using it for today. See, GDP was literally born from crisis. Back in the 30s, it was cooked up in the US to figure a way out of the Great Depression. Then, during World War II, it became this crucial tool to make sure the economy could handle the war effort and keep people supplied at home. And then, boom, 1944, the Bretton Woods Conference makes it the global standard. The thinking was, hey, economic growth equals world peace. But you see the pattern? It was a tool for very specific, massive problems, not some universal ruler for human well-being. Okay, but what is it really? The textbook definition is the total market value of all final goods and services produced inside a country over a certain time. And that word final is super important. It's to stop you from counting the same thing twice, like the tires and then the car they're on. So really, it's just a big measure of how much stuff is being bought and sold. Economic throughput. That's it. Now, here's a key detail. Not all GDP is the same. You've got nominal GDP, which can look bigger just because prices went up. That's inflation messing with the numbers. Then you have real GDP, which is adjusted for that inflation. This is the one that really matters because it tells you if we're actually producing more stuff. It's the number you'll almost always hear economists talking about, and for good reason. And what's kind of wild is that the guy who basically invented GDP, Simon Kuznets, saw all this coming way back in 1934. He warned everyone saying, look, this single number looks simple and clean, but that's the danger. It's too simple and it's going to get twisted and abused in political fights. I mean, he knew from day one that it had major blind spots. So if the creator himself was sounding the alarm, what's the big deal? What is this number actually leaving out of the picture? What parts of our lives does it just completely ignore? Well, for starters, GDP misses pretty much everything that makes life, well, worthwhile. It has no way of measuring the health of our kids or how good their schools are. And think about all the unpaid work that keeps society running. Taking care of an elderly parent, volunteering in your community, even just keeping a home in order. None of that shows up in the GDP numbers, even though it's absolutely essential. Robert F. Kennedy just nailed it back in 1968. He said that GDP measures everything, in short, except that which makes life worthwhile. I mean, that quote just cuts right to the heart of the issue, doesn't it? It's as true today as it was then. But wait. It gets even more messed up. It's not just that GDP misses the good things, it actually counts a lot of bad things as a plus. Think about it. A hurricane hits and causes billions in damage. The cleanup and rebuilding make GDP go up. More crime means we build more prisons. GDP goes up. More car accidents, more pollution, more ads for cigarettes. Anything that involves spending money, good or bad, boosts the final number. It's totally backwards. And this all leads to what economists call the threshold effect. The idea is that, yeah, when a country is poor, more GDP definitely improves life. But you hit a certain point, a threshold, where the downsides of that growth, things like crazy inequality, no free time, pollution, stress, start to cancel out the benefits of just having more stuff. More growth doesn't always equal more happiness. It's just not that simple. And maybe the biggest bill of all for the single-minded obsession with GDP growth is the one our planet has to pay. There was this former World Bank economist, Herman Daly, who just put it so starkly. He said our system treats the Earth as a business in liquidation. Think about that. When GDP looks at a forest, it only sees the money you can get from cutting down the trees. It doesn't see the value of that forest as a home for wildlife or as something that prevents floods or gives us clean air and water. We're just cashing out our natural inheritance and not even bothering to write it down as a loss. Okay, so if GDP is so flawed,
What do we use instead? That's the big question, right? And it's why there's this huge global search happening right now for a better scorecard, something that actually shows us the full picture of progress.
One of the frontrunners is something called Green GDP. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's a total game changer. You take the normal GDP number, but then, and here's the key part, you subtract the cost of using up our natural resources and the damage from pollution. Suddenly, the goal isn't just more activity, it's sustainable well-being. That's a big, big difference. And listen, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea. The United Nations has already built a whole system for it. It's called the SEEA. It's basically a how-to guide for countries to start tracking their natural wealth, like water and forests, account for pollution, and then plug all that data into their economic reports. It's the practical roadmap to getting a real green GDP.
Of course, there are other ideas out there, some that are smaller tweaks. You've got GNI, or gross national income, which is kind of like GDP's cousin. Instead of measuring all the stuff made in a country, it measures all the money earned by the people who live there, no matter where they earned it. It's a subtle change, but it shifts the focus from just production to what's actually ending up in people's pockets.
But at the end of the day, all of these dimming ideas are driving at the same fundamental truth. They're trying to remind us that the economy is supposed to be a tool, a means to an end. It is not the goal itself. The real goal, the whole point, should be to sustainably make life better for people, to improve our quality of life.
You know, this whole debate is way bigger than just finding a new accounting formula. It's really about forcing us to have a conversation, a big global conversation about what we actually care about. What do we truly value as a society? Is it just making and buying more stuff forever? Or is it things like healthy communities, a clean planet, and feeling like our lives have purpose?
And that really brings us to our final question for you, the one we want to leave you with. If you had the power to create a brand new scorecard for your country, a totally new way to measure progress to replace GDP, what would you put on it? What really counts?